Other big news story of the day, Insulate Britain protesters sentenced to 4 months. Alfie and I'll disagree. I think we should glue their backsides to the doors of their cells for 4 months and see whether they like that. What's your take, Alfie? Should we jail them for more, longer, or what?
We do disagree, Jeremy. Yeah, I don't think we should meet peaceful protests with a form of violence in terms of gluing people to.
Well, they glued themselves to the door and stopped people getting to hospital and taking their kids to school, Alfie. Was that not against the law? It was.
Clearly, it's been deemed against the law
Yeah.
Because they broke an injunction. I think the point here, though, is whether there's a role for peaceful protests in a democracy, and I think there absolutely is. I think the issue is critical when we can't. There is no path to net zero unless we insulate our homes. The progress of the environmental movement and other movements, by the way, as well, whether it's voting, suffragettes, whatever else it is built on peaceful direct action. So I think there is clearly a role for this in our democracy. I think more generally, I am worried about a process of imprisoning protesters, whatever the specifics of these cases, just in general, a process for doing so that circumvents parliamentary protest. Like we have a principle here in this country that you can protest and not be imprisoned for it. And yet we have got to a place where this is happening via super injunction, which circumvents that process. So I am worried.
Can I personalise it to you? And I think it's important that people disagree. If you were following your mother who'd had a heart attack to hospital, I asked somebody the other day and they wouldn't answer it, Alfie, and these people had prevented the ambulance for getting through, or you following your mother, you wouldn't be saying what you're saying. I agree you should be able to protest, but not when you then, because you won't win the argument with the British people if you're then stopping them going about their everyday lives, will you? How can you?
So we talked about this before as well. I wouldn't go in and block that road or that ambulance. I wouldn't do that personally. I also, I think it's an interesting question as to whether protesters doing that is furthering their cause or not. And you've raised good points around, perhaps it creates issues and it damages the cause. It's an interesting question, but of course against that is the fact that in the end, forms of direct action are extremely effective. And indeed, we wouldn't have got to where we've got to on the environmental movement or elsewhere without them. So I think it's, in terms of the tactics and the merits of it and whether it's, the morality of it, I think that's a really interesting question. Effectiveness, I think, probably is quite effective. I wouldn't do it personally, but that doesn't mean I think others shouldn't be able to.
James, what do you make of it? What do you make of the sentences today?
I think they're justified. I agree with you, Jeremy. I want to know who their campaign manager is, because I think he needs firing. What a way to go around trying to further your cause by making enemies of the people you're trying to persuade. It's ridiculous. And, especially the public safety aspect, you've got people on their way to hospital. Also, blocking a motorway is never a good idea, is it? So, no, I don't think I would have imprisoned them for what they've done, but to stop them carrying on doing it, because that's clear that they're not going to stop unless they're put away. So
it goes back absolutely to what somebody said to me some weeks ago. I still don't quite really understand or know what Insulate Britain are about, but you are whatever you should be able to protest in a democratic country. Completely give you that, Alfie. But underlined, you ain't going to win any argument with the British people if you mess their lives up in trying to protest. Now, some people will say, yeah, but come on, the suffragettes. I just think in this particular instance, at this particular time in the world, with all the difficulties people have had through the pandemic and whatever else, you're not going to get on the right side of people if you stop them from going to work.